Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Good morning, everybody. Well, first of all, I can't hear the music, so let's fix that. But hey, it's a new week. We've got some inflation numbers coming out. We're kind of all in this is the week before Federal Reserve meeting. So I expect that we will still get quite a bit of action, although I think that the biggest questions were answered on Friday, and it really does seem like we're going to be getting a 25 basis point cut. So let's come in and look at what they did over the weekend. So, my oh my, did we have a lot of volatility on Friday. Like, for the treasuries to swing back and forth that far, that many times is so jarring and hard to trade, and I'm glad that I didn't mess with it. But you can see a little bit lower here this morning, at least lower than where we were before the non-farms payroll report. Now, in the S&P 500, man, they took it on the nose. They, at first it was like, oh, okay, this is good. But as the session wore on, a lot of selling over there in the equities. Now, the European session, they've recovered quite a bit. So it does look like they may be able to completely fix that. But let's not get too hasty. We've got a long session ahead of us. Oil, down below $69 a barrel now. So all of the estimates that I get are on Brent crude, but like the estimates I'm seeing now are like $75 a barrel in Brent. So I don't know where that puts us, but man, oil is not looking good as of late. I'm still kind of thinking though that this is the lower end of the range. They can't stay down here for too long. Here's gold. So gold also took it on the nose on Friday, but they seem to be recovering. Not as strongly as the equities, but they are there. Silver in particular really was one of the biggest losers on Friday. Copper. Okay, copper is having a pretty good run this morning. Japanese yen. Okay, well, they've been looking pretty good as of late, but bit of a climb this morning, and the dollar at 101.5. Oh yes, and Bitcoin, can't forget Bitcoin. Bitcoin also just really falling apart on Friday, but over the weekend they were able to stabilize and get back to 55,000. So, yo, what's gas costing up around you? Oh man, you know what? I do not remember those sorts of things. I don't have to fill my gas tank up very often either, because I work from home and everything. But I want to say it's like $2.50. No, actually, maybe we are above $3. Usually above $3 is where I'm like, oh no, let's see here. Let's just pull up a tool to look at it. I mean, neither do I, but I go outside and yeah. But like, that's the thing is I do, and I look at the signs, but I just don't remember. That's not something that I remember and think about. Oh, that's cool. Oh, okay, 350, 250. See, that's way too crazy. See, gas buddy, yeah. 358. in my area specifically. Why is it so much cheaper in Bountiful? Huh. Oh, that's actually where I go, because there's a spot down there in Bountiful where there's a gas station on all 4 corners. I guess it means cheaper gas over there. You're 327 in Florida? Well, I think that would make sense because you have to, you know, bring it inland, right? Yeah, see, they're like $3, $2.99. Of course, then there's like Florida, or sorry, California, where it's over $4. Good grief. I remember one of the biggest like price shocks I ever saw was when I was a kid. So this was like during George Bush. But when I was like 16 or 17, we went on a trip to Europe, and if you wanted to get a can of pop from a vending machine, it was like $12 or something. Like, it was an amount that's like still kind of ridiculous, actually. And man, that's when I was like, oh, there really are things about the United States that are much better than Europe. It's kind of, you know, this is something that I think is so bizarre, is Europeans really, really think highly of themselves and everything, and that they're educated and know what's going on around the world and things like that. But then when it comes to things like what it's like in the United States, they're just completely clueless. Like, you get into what houses are built out of, for instance. They're like, look, here in Germany, our walls are like, you know, a foot thick and all of these sorts of things. And it's like, well, okay, first of all, that's why you can't get your Wi-Fi to every part of your house. But number two, like, we have tornadoes and stuff here, man. Like, you're not, a house like that's a death trap. Like, and it gets cold. Like, it gets hot, it gets cold. Man, over in the UK, and it gets like in the 90s Fahrenheit in the UK, and they're like, oh, it's so hot. No, are you kidding, man? It's like 100 degrees all summer long here. Tavius, you took a long? Oh yeah, okay, we are long. They've had a decent run here since we started. I mean, I was a little bit late getting started, so, you know, of course I miss it, but they poop over high 70s there. Yeah, it really is weird, man. It's, you know what though, I think it's also somewhat similar for like people in New York. I don't think that people in, like, it does get to 100 degrees in New York. It can. But I don't think that New Yorkers realize that, like, you come down into Utah and Arizona, and it's like that basically from mid-May until the end of September. Like, it cooled down to 90 degrees this week, and we've been like, oh, this is so nice. Let's go outside, especially in the evening. Oh, yeah. Kids have been going back outside again. I decided to use this chair today, and there's nice things about it, and I need to make the video. I need to make the video on, because this chair is amazing, but it's like amazing when you're like this. Oh yeah. Okay, this is when the chair is amazing. The upright position on this chair, too much. That's too upright for me. I don't like it. Let's switch. finally started pouring on us a bit. Well, you know, it's been an El Nino year. It's kind of been, I've been paying more attention to the weather and the weather patterns, to like the larger macro weather patterns, to try and get an idea of like what the ski season might be like. Unfortunately, this information doesn't help me too much to determine that, but because Utah is kind of in this middle zone. But, you know, we had El Nino, which is colder water there, you know, around the equator in South America area. We had El Nino for like what, 6 to 8 years or something like that. This is like the first El Nino in a really, really, really long time. And yeah, it gets hot. An El Nino means it gets hotter down south. It just came late is all. I like it more than the heat, but sometimes it's so heavy you start to wonder if your house is going to get sucked into the ground. I'm out. Let's talk about the polls. Okay. So the New York Times Siena poll over the weekend once again shows Donald Trump up. So Kamala Harris was leading for quite some time. We're saying, like, you know, these polls that kind of normalize. You've got like the bounce from her getting in. You got the convention bounce. With things normalize, probably you're going to see that Donald Trump is doing really well. Part of how we were able to say that, though, was looking at the state-by-state polling. Like, as the way things stand right now, there's a really high probability that Donald Trump wins the electoral vote and loses the popular vote. That's the way that things stand right now. But here's the thing. If we are getting towards, you know, like when we get into October in particular, okay, so a month from now, if the polling is still like this, Kamala Harris is down. Again, the Democrats really live on being popular. These are the popular kids that the thing that scares them the most is being socially ostracized. And they do everything they can to portray themselves as, you know, we're the winning team, we're the most popular ones, everybody's going to vote for us. So if you get to the election and the Democrat is losing, the Democrats get way more depressed by that than the Republicans do. Like, seriously. So I think there's a really good probability that if things go the way that they've been going, that you will start to see Kamala Harris's support just completely and utterly collapse. Now, the thing is that there's a lot going on still that can change the trajectory of the race. So I still think that Donald Trump is going to win, but I'm also kind of, you know, being a Republican, I'm a little bit worried and concerned, I guess you could say, that we will see a big change in the dynamic of the race here. So something could happen during the debate. Something could happen during the debate that could really shift the race. I think in particular, one thing that I would be on the lookout for with tomorrow's debate is if there is a particular discussion or set of exchanges that shifts what subject people are talking about the most. That's one of the things that debates can really strongly affect, is which topic is the hot topic amongst voters. It's been the economy and inflation, but immigration is starting to come up there too. Now, these are things that are favorable to Republicans. I don't know what would be the change that would be favorable to Democrats. But I'm thinking about Donald Trump, like, what are Donald Trump's vulnerabilities? The biggest vulnerability that I see on Trump And maybe this is just kind of a me thing, like the things that Seth's going to pay attention to more, but the tariff thing. So I really don't think that Donald Trump is going to impose across the board tariffs on all imported goods. That would really hurt the economy and probably not be a very good idea. There's also, over the weekend, he was promoting like, oh, if you don't support the dollar, if you join BRICS platform, if you become one of these BRICS countries, then we're just going to put 100% tariff on you. Also, probably a bad idea because, it is, I totally see the, like, we should negotiate and use the power that we have to kind of persuade people into doing what we want. What you saw with Russia was, they can just completely disconnect themselves if they need to. And, it was like a year or two of pain, but now Russia is okay where it's at and now completely disconnected from the West. So now the West really has no power over them. So I don't think that that's a particularly great policy on his part. And that's one that, like, economists will really hammer on. So that's, for instance, a weakness of his, right? Another weakness of his would be, like, if she somehow was able to, like, get under his skin. I think that was Kamala Harris's strategy. I think she wanted to do what she did with Mike Pence, where it was basically like constantly interrupting each other so that she can say, hey, I'm speaking. But they weren't able to get the rule change. So they also strategically unveiled her policy platform today, did they? Yeah, so back to the New York Times Siena poll. You're going to see people talking about this poll a lot. And you might ask, well, yeah, okay, but it's a national poll and there's other polls. So why does this one matter so much? And I think the reason why you're going to see people talk about this one so much is because of what it says in the crosstabs. Because what voters are basically saying in the other questions, from what I've read, is, Kamala Harris has basically been avoiding giving us specifics on anything. And when she does take a platform, position, it's like in complete opposition to what she's done in the past. So voters don't really feel like they know who she is. And the poll is basically showing that this strategy is blowing up in her face. That the keep her away from the public and don't let anybody know what she actually wants to do is not working. So she unveiled this policy platform today. That's interesting. We'll see where that goes. I'm not so sure that her unveiling her policy platform will fix that problem, It's finally on her website. Well, it's like, the first thing is will she actually be able to articulate that platform, right? Like, because if they basically went through and are like, okay, what do people want and what does Donald Trump say his platform is, and then you position yourself strategically to counter his platform specifically, right? Then what's going to happen is when people start asking you questions about it, you're not going to be able to answer them very well. And so that's a problem. And then particularly in a debate, right? Donald Trump can come and punch all of these holes in what she says. And then there's also the issue that it's like, well, but if it contradicts what she said in the past, then why would you trust her? You still don't feel like you know her because you don't really actually know what the real Kamala Harris position is. Because all you're getting is something from policy advisors that didn't come from her. So yeah, current trajectory of the race is Donald Trump wins. Kamala Harris support will start to collapse, but you have a high probability, especially in this next week, of that changing. We'll see where we're at. Could be, I am concerned she could, that the debate could kind of shift things back towards a really competitive race. But who knows? Maybe she'll just do absolutely terrible at the debate. She's not a particularly great debater. Remember that when she ran in the Democrat primary, because her it's actually kind of funny because I think that her strategy was kind of a similar sort of a thing. It was like, okay, let's look at the Democrat base and just take the most extreme position we can on every issue that they'll support. So all in on the, all cops are ACAB, all in on the whole college debt forgiveness, all in on universal health care, gun control, like all of those things. And was that really what she actually believed? And no, it was just like what the Democrats wanted to hear. But then the thing was that the more that they heard from her during the debate, the more they disliked her, even though she was completely in on their agenda. And then Tulsi Gabbard came along and just destroyed her, right? So, we'll see. Yeah, remember that was the big jab, was that there's nothing on her website. Yeah. Well, I haven't done too much reading this morning. Maybe, I just popped over to Reddit to see the top stories, and I didn't really see too much there. Let's come over to Politico. Well, the top story on Politico is Johnson's future speakership could hinge on the spending fight. Ah, yes. There is an upcoming battle on the budget, and the battle basically always ends up being... Oh, wait, hold on a second. Your chat just died here on me. What's with that? There we go. Yeah, so it really seems to me like there's a certain group of conservatives that just want to have a government shutdown and keep the government shut down forever. And until Democrats budge on something or something like that, right? I don't think that would go very well politically for them. But that's going to be the fight. And before the election too, was kind of like, guys, really? But above the fold, I don't see anything on Kamala Harris and her policy platform. What about Potter, the conservative outlet? Democrats freaking out because Trump says he will jail election cheaters. Yeah. Did GOP voters become more socially liberal under Trump? I think so, probably. Nope, I don't see anything. All right, well, let's go to our website. It is Steve's. No? Maybe, no. Issues. Okay. A new way forward. So, one of the things that is always kind of interesting in these, I don't know if it really matters per se, but is how much of their platform is platitudes versus actual policies. Right, build an opportunity economy and lower costs for families. That's kind of like a platitude. How are you actually going to do that? Okay. Cut taxes for middle class families. Okay. More tax cuts, huh? Oh, they want to expand the child tax credit. That would be great. That, you know, that'd be like another extra $1,000 or $2,000 a month for me. That's what it was. And I'll save every cent of it, because you know where that money goes? I could be wrong. Maybe everybody just spends it, but I think that money probably goes into education. Like, it'll just make the cost of college more expensive. We are committed to ensuring nobody that earning less than $400,000 a year will pay more than taxes. You know, I remember that they said that with like, if you make less than $200,000 a year, you won't pay more in taxes. And then taxes went up on those people. Uh-oh, make rent more affordable? Okay, build rental units. Cut red tape. Sounds like a conservative platform to me. Sign legislation to outlaw new forms of price fixing by landlords. Okay, so yeah, you got price controls. That people will hit her on that, but my experience has been that voters fall for that one. That like landlords, yeah, they are greedy and do all of the bad things. We should stop them from doing that, and they totally vote for that sort of stuff. Grow small business. Well, that's what you want to do right now. It's like she took Bill Clinton's platform. Take on bad actors. Oh, how are you going to bring down the cost of health? They'll accelerate negotiations, cover more drug and lower prices for Americans. Also announced the medical debt will be removed from credit reports. Okay. So not a whole lot there, but okay, so you know what I see here on the platform that she put on here is she's put a bunch of things that most people should be able to agree on. She has a couple of little I want to call them dog whistles in there, like on price controls and things like that. Here, you know, tackling energy costs, for instance. So all of the things about Kamala Harris that voters don't like, she has avoided saying anything about. For instance, Kamala Harris has pretty explicitly supported reparations in the past. She's pretty explicitly supported price controls. There's a little bit about price controls, but not like the stuff that came out in her economic plan. She's pushed for complete college debt forgiveness. She's pushed for complete overhaul, basically a single payer healthcare system. But like when you come in here and you look at childcare, where was it? Is it this one right here? Yeah, strengthen and bring down the cost of healthcare. All she says is like, oh, the Affordable Care Act is great and we protected it, and we're also going to continue to negotiate prices, right? Like it was very, very innocuous. When in the past she said, oh, let's just do a single payer. So maybe as president, you can sign something to make everybody be covered under Medicare or something like that, right? So I think that there's a lot of holes to be poked in that, right? Like you'd think that this is like shade, but it's like an umbrella with a bunch of holes in it. I don't think it solves their problems. But let's see. Hmm. So they seem to have settled at 24.5. It's very curious though. They had an impulse. Somebody went long, and then that impulse died down, and this hole that they fell back into is a little bit steeper than normal, I think. So that's a little curious. Liquidity looks good. It's just it seems like the market makers are already asking for more than they normally would. So that means that we need to be careful about where we pick our spots, because if we were to, for instance, take a pick at 25, granted they're already up 2 ticks, the chances of them coming back down further than that are relatively high. How can I set up NinjaTrader 8 like you have? I have been struggling with the setup. What particular thing about NinjaTrader 8 do you want to have it? So, first of all, note that all of the DOMs are from Jigsaw. If you want the charts to look like mine, you have to come in here, right-click, Data Series. I have Optimized Candlestick, which is on my website, but you can just use the regular candlestick, no big deal. And then Keller's up bar, down bar, up, outline, down outline. The wicks. Oh, do I not have a color set for the wicks? Oh, no, I do. You know what? I think I have this up bar wick, but it doesn't do anything because I never finished that. So yeah, that's how I have my chart set up. But again, you can just have the regular candlestick and just set the colors to orange and cornflower blue. And that's basically all there is to it. Then I guess if you want the watermark, that's one of the indicators on my speculatorsept.com website, one of the free indicators. Obsidian Futures. If I were looking to emulate how hedge funds trade interest rates, what might be all of the things I would pay attention to on the day? Well, so when we're talking about like a hedge funds and how they trade interest rates, I don't think this is really what you're looking for. I think that the answer here is going to be something that's not exactly what you want to hear. So a lot of funds, especially momentum funds, because remember, a lot of these hedge funds that are involved in futures, they are essentially momentum funds. And they've made a lot of money on treasuries because there is a large degree of momentum in treasuries. It will be like, depending on which way we are in the cycle, you take a position and you go in, right? Like if that's as low as the treasuries are going to get for this cycle, you just long the treasuries now, right? Unless there's a momentum shift, but probably most of them, they're going to be long and they're going to stay long for as long as they can. But there's also advantages like you can buy the treasuries outright. You can do the basis trade, so you can like own them and sell the futures against them. All of these little things that basically allows them to make a little bit more extra money from holding the treasuries. So the way that the hedge funds interact in the treasuries ends up being very different from the way that most of us do. Because for us, all we care about is it going to move up or down today, essentially, right? When it comes down to the intraday basis, the thing that really matters is, are other people going to buy or sell? And if you have some information that suggests that people are going to buy today, then you buy it. And that's all there is to it, right? But these hedge funds and stuff like that, they're kind of doing things that are more like taking advantage of the yield curve, the differences between different rates, and you know, using the rates to like hedge against other things, essentially. So like they're not necessarily looking at it like, is it going to buy or sell today, right? They're looking at it from like, can I borrow in this currency and then take it over here and go and buy this asset over here and take advantage of the really low interest rate in Japan? For instance, that's the carry trade, right? The carry trade is you take your dollars, you convert them over into Japanese yen, or no, you don't take your dollars. You just go to the Japanese yen and you borrow a lot of money in yen, and then you go and you exchange your yen for dollars, and you go and you buy stuff here. That's basically the carry trade, right? So you borrow in a cheap currency and then you invest somewhere where you get a higher yield. So, and one of the things that they'll do is borrow over here real cheap and then buy treasuries over here, right? That's those sorts of things that they do. So if you get into, I'm not going to pull the book out, but like, when you get into the really heavy bond books, like Stigum, it's probably the one that I've always been recommended. Or Fizoli, another author to look for, and they will spend a lot more talking about those sorts of things. It's really weird, like when it comes to day trading and the things that move the markets, you know, in some respects we maybe know more about that than a lot of the big institutional traders do, simply because that's not, they don't have to worry about that stuff. I would say, from my knowledge, the people in the industry that are the most likely to be like looking at the same things that we are, it's going to be block traders. But that's why a large part of our strategy is basically looking out for signs of the block traders being out there and trying to front run them, right? Oh, would you mind typing those names out? Yeah, so Bezol, I don't even know how to spell them. Bezoli? Well, let me do it this way, as I have like a little trove of books. At least I thought I did. Okay, so here's one. Is Stigum. Stigum. And this one right here, Analyzing and Interpreting the Yield Curve, was a good book. That one's a good book because it's not as heavy. It's not as heavy as these other ones. I don't think I ever bought the Fizoli one. It appears that because I don't know how to spell Fizoli, that I cannot find his book. But Stigum is one. gotta say, a lot of it gets really complicated and doesn't really make sense without like going into the math of it. So well, I tell you what, it looks like 25 was the place to buy because they've just been nothing but up since then. I'm writing a Reddit post. Hold on. Unrelated to trading. Just kind of eyeing the 10-year here, though. They came back up, but it wasn't really followed by a very strong push in cumulative delta. It was accompanied by a pretty strong push higher in the Japanese yen, though. So it does look like something that could potentially continue, but I'm not an expert in the yen and don't really know what the flows are going to be there, so that doesn't really provide a very good trade for me. Well, this was a bit better this AM. You finished with 4 ticks. Good job. It really looks to me like, you know, there is activity out there, mostly because we're still kind of in a little bit of a volatile regime left over from Friday, and that there was a buy at the beginning, but so far after that, the treasury market looks pretty quiet, and the trend up was because of the Japanese yen. So I don't like to necessarily take trades when it's the yen that's really driving things, unless I really have a strong reason to think that the yen is going to continue to go up. Oh, you can hear the Discord notifications again. That's funny. You know what? It's because I've been doing all this stuff, messing around with my audio. So like my Pioneers, which I did like the Pioneers. I liked the way that the Pioneers sounded. Some people said that it's too muddy and too bass heavy, but I found that after you let them break in and everything, that it was really great, and you got good sub bass in a headphone. I liked it, and the rest of the sound profile was pretty even, so it was decent for producing in. At least, like, you know, a compromise between a producing headphone and a DJ headphone, it was really good at that. But the quality on them was really shoddy. And you know, the thing would come out from the ear cup, and the coating on the ear cups would fall off, and all of these things, and I fixed it and tried to keep it up as long as I could. But eventually something happened, and the tiny little wire that goes from the one earphone to the other broke, and so you only get sound out of the left ear. So then I started using these headphones, which I got as part of my audio interface. Like, it came with the audio interface, the microphone, and the headphones. I'm not a huge fan of these, mostly because of the way that they look, and the inside of them aren't as comfortable as they seem. And so I used this for a little while, and then this one did the same thing, where somewhere along the line here, the wire that goes from this ear cup to this ear cup is broken, and so I do hear sound in this ear, but it's a lot softer than it's supposed to be. So we ordered a new headphone, and that headphone basically got stuck at their shipping facility for like a whole week. So I finally got updates, and they said expect to see it on Wednesday. So I should get my new headphone on Wednesday, and then I'll have to put it together. And then I'll have to figure out how to connect it into my audio interface to get the live sound out of it and see if that all works. So in the meantime, I've been trying to figure out, okay, how do what else do I got? Okay, well, I've got my Skull Crushers. So Skull Crushers has a wire on it. Well, the problem with the Skull Crushers is that the Skull Crushers are really designed to plug into your phone. And so they do come with an audio jack, but it's a TRRS, which basically means like you get left, right, and microphone. So you connect the TRRS into the 1/4 inch jack, and like you don't even get any sound out because they don't match up quite, like they're not like in the right spots. So I went and I got like a $10, where is it? Do I have it? Oh yeah, here it is. This thing right here, this just takes the microphone input out so that you can use it like a TRS, a regular headphone. Well, the problem with this one is that the male end of this is too big to fit into the I have it over here. The 1/4 inch jack, because the 1/4 inch jacks that I have are like the kind that screw on here, and so the thread touches the plasticky part. And as I'm like unplugging headphones and plugging them in and all of these things, it's like screwing up all of my audio settings. So yeah, I did do all this crazy stuff because I was like, well, if I do this one, and then I have a 1/4 inch one that doesn't have the threaded on it, but there's something different with this one, because when you do use this one, sound only comes out of the left ear. So it's the same problem. And then I'm like, oh, is it not the headphone? Is it like a problem with the audio interface or something like that? Well, if I can plug into my mixer, and then I see that, yes, these headphones still has a problem. I can only hear out of the left. I plug my Skull Crushers into that, then I hear it out of both sides. So yeah, those I can plug it into the smaller jack, and then when I do the whole thing, and then I only hear it out of one. So I know that the problem is this. Super annoying. I still feel off kilter. So last week, the thing that kind of had me off kilter, I tell you what, man, I think this is an ADHD thing, but like some things will just kind of loom over you, you know? It's like if you have a really big deadline and you know that like the future of your life depends on that deadline, like passing a test, for instance. Hard to think about anything else, right? And the thing that I had an issue with last week was that we lost the van car key. So we could still use the car, and we did, and it was okay. But you got to find the van key, right? And we never found it, to be honest with you. We never found it. So my wife found this thing online that they sell you the car key, and they send you this little device. You rent this little device, and the device lets you reprogram the car and the key. So I basically programmed a new key. And so I feel a little bit better now from that. But like my headphones are not like, it's just the dumbest thing, but I don't feel 100% because of my headphones. I'm also sick, so hopefully I don't get more sick. I'd say I'm more sick today than I was yesterday. It's mostly just like sinus infection, and it's not even like a really runny nose, but it's just like I can tell that there's gunk in there and that I want to get it out. But I'm also feeling something in my gut. Like, no, I don't think it, well, it could be, but everybody in my family has picked up some sort of a flu. I think it might have been COVID, but I don't really know. But they were, they'd get like the full body aches and stuff like that. And so I'm kind of sitting here wondering, like, am I starting to get that? And that's why I kind of feel sore on my side. Was like I worked out here, and that's feeling sore, and the sickness kind of makes it like exacerbates it. Or am I having issues with my gut, and like that burn in my gut feels? But then when it's my large intestine, that tends to be lower. That tends to be closer to my hip bone. And this is like just below my rib. Feels sore. And it was like that all night. I thought, oh, maybe it's gas and things like that. And I did have gas, but then the gas came and passed, and I still feel the area. I don't know. Let's look at a picture here. Oh, no. I thought... Oh, now that's interesting. So the areas that I tend to feel the most... I tend to feel like here and here. So those are two spots along my tract. But where I'm feeling it now is over here. So I may be developing an ulcer up here. Dude said intestine like southerner? I don't know. I was watching this thing the other day, and it was talking about the regional Utah accent. Like you drop T's. This is really common. But like some of the other things, and I was like, I don't know if I do those, but I could see how people would like almost immediately pick out that you were from the Intermountain West and look down on you. It's weird. Because I've always kind of thought of the Utah accent as pretty innocuous. Like most people wouldn't notice it unless they knew what they were looking for. But for some people, and it's probably more the people that live outside of Salt Lake that would do this, but some of the people, like they'll say wash instead of wash. Anyways. It's gotta be my gut. That's giving me issues. I also wonder because I had on Saturday night, I had a really good salad, and that salad usually helps like my digestive system. I guess I need to make sure that I'm getting my psyllium husk again. That kind of helped. Felt the swing breakout high. I'm seeing signs that it could do it, but they're kind of playing that will we, won't we game, aren't they? But it looks to me like the Japanese yen has not stopped. So now you're not getting the carry trade unwind panic today, right? Because in the past we've seen like the Japanese yen is moving up pretty strongly, and like the S&P 500 is just getting absolutely destroyed, and you're not getting that today. So that's a little encouraging. That says to me that the carry trade has mostly unwound. I don't know. I mean, usually not too anxious to trade on a Monday, though. I'd say, though, that this is a better trend than you usually get on a Monday. And there was a pretty big... Oh, okay, so it's right there at the top. 5K hit into 28. So it looks to me like there's some supply there. They may have to kind of fiddle around a little bit in order to continue pushing through. I think that they probably will push through, but this situation has always been like a crapshoot for me. It's always been like a 50-50 as to whether they break out or not. And sometimes they will have a decent pullback before they break out too, you know? Looks like it rejected. Well, there was 2 ticks that it looked like it rejected, but it's ticked back up there again. I'm really curious to see if they clear 28, how many contracts it takes them to do it, right? Because you might get that somebody is hedging there, or you know, whatever the reason is, they have some supply to provide there, but because of the correlation with the Japanese yen, they're still going to be pushing through there, and so eventually the kind of the market taking robots will eventually push through it. They're just going to have to fill the guy first. I think that that's why in these kinds of spots you get a little bit more going around with it than you normally do. It's because they don't want to reveal their hand. Like, they do have a lot more to buy, but they don't want anybody to know it. Or if they don't have a whole lot more to buy, they don't want them to know it, because then they would probably... Well, actually, maybe you might be okay with letting them know that, because then it could come back and you might get a better price, right? No, so I was reading this book yesterday, Making Sense of Chaos. Talks about complexity study. There's some interesting things that he talked about in there that I thought were kind of interesting and or useful, even though they weren't like, okay, like I think he's getting towards, here is the way that the science is developed, and here are kind of like some of the major uses along the way, so for you to get like a base introduction to it. But there's a lot of stuff in there that's just kind of like seems to have general application to it. So the one that I thought was really funny was he said there's a difference between something having complexity and being complex. So something having a lot of complexity means that there's a lot of moving parts, right? There's all of these individual factors, and those individual factors can vary a large amount. What was it that they called that? It has a large... I forget the term that he used, but you know, there's a large space that can transverse across, and even small changes in values can like dramatically affect how that thing moves, and thus it makes them very difficult to predict. So he was talking about trying to predict the roulette wheel, right? So with a roulette wheel, there's like how fast the wheel is spinning at the beginning, and what position it's thrown, and the velocity that it's thrown, and all of these things can kind of create a wildly different answer, right? So it has a lot of complexity. But complex means that it's more about the answers, that the way that it moves based off of all of those factors is really complicated and difficult to explain, right? Like some things have a lot of complexity but are not complex. So there's a lot of things that you have to factor into it to determine what it's going to do, but then how it behaves is just like it's just linear, and it's not, you know, or maybe it's a circle or whatever the deal is, but it's not like, you know, it's not wildly complex. Like a Mandelbrot, that's complex, right? Because you can you can zoom in on it infinitely and just find all of these intricate structures everywhere, right? That's complex. Anyways, so that was one thing that came off of it. But the thing that I wanted to talk about that I thought was interesting is he talked about trophic structures. So like in the study of the animal kingdom, one of the things that they will do is they will map out the relationships between different species, right? So like cows eat grass, and then the big cats come and eat the cows, or whatever it is. Maybe we should be talking about gazelles or water buffalo or something like that. But right, there's like these hierarchies essentially in our ecosystems, relationships between animals, right? And so one of the things that he talked about was taking that sort of trophic structure and applying it to the economy, applying it to economics. So, you have some companies that are like, they are mining. They're like base materials, right? And those are kind of like the plants or the cows, right? And then you have different industries that graze on that, and there's different trophic levels. And what they find is that you can look at an individual economy and like what the trophic levels are of the industries in the economy. And the higher its trophic level is, the faster that economy tends to grow. So what happens is, so for instance, like a laptop is the example that he gives. A laptop kind of sits at the top of that hierarchy. So if there is an improvement in how materials are mined so that the materials are mined more efficiently and more cheaply, the cost of that material is going to go down, and that helps your margin on the laptop. And so an improvement anywhere down the chain results in improvement in your own product without you doing anything, because you have a high trophic level if you're selling laptops, right? That was very interesting. That I thought had some really good application. Is like, if you're stuck when on a matter of economics, you want to make more money or whatever the deal is, what you should try to do is try to increase your trophic level. Try and get at the top of that pyramid, because there's going to be more efficiencies driven through there. So I do site reliability engineering. And I think one of the things about site reliability engineering that people don't realize is that it has the highest trophic level amongst the computer engineering disciplines. So we don't make the application. Often the site reliability engineers aren't even making the observability stack. Sometimes you have a team that's specifically for observability, and you might have teams specifically for data engineering, right? And the site reliability engineers are consuming that data and using that, consuming what they know about the application and what they know about the data to see, debug problems or find ways to make the system more efficient, right? So the trophic level of site reliability engineering is actually very, very high. And that's why it's a great place to be in the software industry right now. Of course, software industry overall is kind of struggling, so that's a tough thing. I'm a little bit concerned about it. Like, I'm concerned that even if we don't have a recession, that my industry is in a recession and I could be affected by that. Real possibility, I think. But it's a good part of the industry to be in because of its high trophic level. So I've been trying to think about how can I apply that to this? Well, I think one of the things is like, for instance, Joe Rogan. So Joe Rogan, I think he has a really high trophic level because if the people, the more good content that the people that he interviews is coming up with, the better his content is going to be, right? So he has, amongst social media influencers, he has like the highest trophic level. And that's why interviewers have the spots that they do. That's interesting. That's something that I could probably utilize to our advantage on this channel more, I think. Yeah. How can I apply it to trading? Well, I don't know. You know, in the trading perspective. Oh, you know what? That totally reminds me, by the way. We should be able to download Jigsaw Beta 5 now. So if you know, a major improvement is made by my software provider, that's something that I could benefit from, for instance, right? So, because technically that's higher trophic level amongst the developers. Although I think in this case, the developers make more money out of this than the traders do, right? Okay, let's see here. You checked and you didn't see it. Yep, you're right. The latest release is still 4022. So I'm sure that we'll get it later today, but maybe I should keep an eye on Fighter. Actually, let's check their Discord. Anything on their Discord? No. The big one was that they're putting they added CPU support to the Vista chart. So the Vista chart will be super snappy now. Maybe I'll pull it up more often. I'm going for the IB breakout. Wow. Oh, I didn't even realize they came all the way down and all the way back again. Finally, they made some change. Well, I honestly, I mean, I don't really know because I haven't heard him say anything about that, but I would think that just based on his attitude that I've seen on this in the past, that they mostly include the Vista chart because Bookmap has it and people like it from Bookmap. But I really don't think that it adds a whole lot. Yeah, they added a previous day's profile to the DOM display. Which, you know, the interesting thing about that is, oh, hey, like most of the volume profile setups that I've ever heard about are based on prior day levels. So it totally makes sense to me that you would want to put that on your job. That I don't know if, listen, I've tried backtesting those things and they're not that good. But I think that all of the stuff that people came up with based off of volume profile, I think was based on a couple of should I say misunderstandings? But I talk about that in that video, right? Like people say, okay, we're, you know, 60-70% of the time we will touch the previous day's point of control. And if we open below the previous day's value area, there's a really good chance that we'll come back and visit the previous day's point of control. Well, yeah, that would be pretty likely just because the previous day's point of control is almost always the previous day's close. You look at the close and you look at the point of control, and they are the same area like 80% of the time. So you're talking about the market is likely to revisit a price that they were at the last time that the market was active, right? There's like the close, and then there's the overnight action where they can't move as far. Like, it's more volatile, but there's not as much activity, so they tend not to move as far. And then when you come in and you get the opening auction and all of the activity in the S&P 500, that volatility is going to be a lot higher than what the volatility was overnight. And so you're likely to touch that price. And that's why I think you see it. That doesn't make it a very good predictor of whether we're going to be up or down today. But people trade them, so like, yeah, you put that tool in there, that would probably be useful for them, right? The volume profile, the current volume profile, is an essential tool because you got to be able to see like how much is actually traded there overall. It's one of the things that I have not always been very good at watching, but like how much does actually trade there? 60K, that's a pretty decent distribution. That's, I would say, an average decent distribution. Oh yeah, I totally forgot about this, guys. We should talk about this. There's an exchange named Kalshi, and I've actually talked to the guys that own this place, by the way. There was a bit of a back and forth, but I didn't really want to, get involved in what they were doing, because they were trying to do like a rollout with influencers and stuff like that. But I thought they were like binary contracts and nothing. But now they won a lawsuit against the SEC so that they can provide election markets. So we'll have a regulated exchange in the United States that has election markets again. That will matter. That will be a big deal, I think. Right now, with the markets that are available, they're very illiquid and not very useful. But when Kalshi has them going, that'll be something worth watching. Okay, so by the way, they did break the high there, right? It was 28, and now they're at 29. I didn't really see how much it took to trade through it. I didn't see it when it traded through it, but they had traded about 5,000 contracts before, and now it's 78. So that means that it took them about 2,000 contracts to push through. And now you're getting a distribution with 3,000 on each side, and I guess it took 3,000 to clear it first as well. So I would say that that's a pretty decent push, that flow still looks strong. I do kind of wonder if that 28 level was kind of like some sort of a key. Like they bounced off that 3 times, essentially. Came up, died back down, came up again, and we were like, it's going to do, and then it didn't. And now, while I've been not paying attention, they came back up and busted through it very, very easily. So, there's kind of like the support and resistance traders will be like, oh, it's support and resistance. It's great. You just buy here, sell here, except for on the breakout. Well, how do you know it's going to break out? But when I see that makes me think there must be some sort of correlation or something that's keeping it in that range at the moment. So what changed? Oh, probably this changed. Probably the Japanese yen changed. How much of a change in cumulative delta was it? About 10,000 contracts? So it's still just an average sized move. Just a normal sized move, let's say. Normal is 10,000 contracts in the 10-year treasury, okay? Tracy Short. Oh, she's changed her name to be her full name now. Traders are pricing in an almost 240 basis points of Fed cuts. Really? Oh, you know what? We should totally come in and check that too. Tools. Fed watch. Well, the tool loaded up here, but it doesn't look very, it's not drawing the picture. It's not letting me change these, but it looks like that the 25 basis point cut is now 73% versus 30% of a 50 basis point cut. When last week it was 50-50. Essentially. That's weird that it says 1 week and that's 70-30 because that was not the case on the 30th of August. I don't. Oh well, maybe. I don't know. I don't think it was. Because we looked at it on Friday and it wasn't like that. Well, anyways. So that's interesting. So you're getting like the Bills pricing that they are only going to do 25 basis point cuts, but then the rest of the market kind of pricing that they're going to go a lot further than that. Now, I think that when you look at like, especially on the treasuries and stuff, that momentum and all of those factors together are likely to push them way further than like what a good pricing. So I would really be skeptical. I wouldn't read too much into like what the pricing for like, you know, that they're gonna cut basically 2.5% over the next how long. That would be a pretty aggressive cut. I think you might see them continue to, if this first cut doesn't, you know, really cause heating up, I think that you're likely to see them continue to bring rates down until it, you know, is normalized. But I don't think that they'll have to do it very quickly. Although the Fed members have been kind of saying that they favor front loading it, huh? US SEC hits 7 public companies with penalties for violating whistleblower protection. Okay, so I am noting the Japanese yen appears to be moderating now. We're getting an orange candle in the yen. It's like that was only good for 2 ticks down in the treasury though. Oh my gosh. Mark Levin, I had a very bad fall this weekend and tore my quadricep between my right knee and thigh. I'll likely be in surgery in the next day or two. I'll be back on air as soon as I can. Ah, that's insane. Dude, how old is he? 66? He'll probably be okay. I don't know. Doesn't give me a whole lot of confidence in him making it to 100. But that's a pretty big deal. He's one of the biggest, most respected conservative commentators amongst the conservatives. Nvidia's 100 is the hold your nose and buy level. Here, today's the 9th, right? Gonna see, did we get a Rasmussen report? chart yet? No, just last night's. So Trump's big rise. Pared down a little back to the moving average. But he seems to be seeing what other polls are, right? That Trump pulling out away again. Will Kamala Harris be able to stop his momentum? Should we call it that? I don't know. Can she change the race around with the debate? Maybe she can. Maybe she can. Well, a decent amount is traded at 28.5 now. So as long as they're filling those out, I think one of the places where you really run into a lot of trouble is when you have a place through here where it didn't trade a whole lot of contracts to push through it, and then it came back. And so you kind of get this little tail. Those are where the reversals are a little bit more nasty. But so far, this is looking pretty healthy. Like, I think that although I don't have any information to tell me what the future meta orders are going to be, and I'm still really wary because I do think that this is being driven mostly by the yen, but the volume at the very least looks healthy enough that they could continue to push up. I guess, so let's go back. Like, if I was going to take a trade, what would I like to see? I would like to say that the things I was looking for that morning were that there was going to be long, and I would like to see my impression of the DOM suggesting that they're moving up, and I would like to see a strong, consistent move up in cumulative delta, right? So, well, first of all, cumulative delta is, well, they've come back. So it's basically the same as it was down here at these lows. Okay. So not a huge change in cumulative delta. And when I look at this, so like something like that and like that, that's okay. Because that's like, this is leg one, this is leg two, right? But what I don't like is like this and this and this, where like we're getting these large trades that come in and kind of mess around with everything and kind of causing problems. So that suggests to me that single large individual trades are having a really strong impact. The market makers are kind of pulling and allowing it to move around a lot. Even though when I come back over here to the DOM, there's a lot of contracts. We're getting 5,000s on there and everything, but they're trading through it with like 2,000 contracts. So it's relatively slippery. So that probably means that it is the Japanese yen that's driving it and not a block trader in the treasuries. This was probably a block trader. Maybe there is a block trader still there, but there's other things making this a little bit messy. So that does not fit in with my, the kind of trade that I'm looking for. Plus, it's a Monday, and I tend to not want to trade on Monday because you're less likely to get those kinds of orders on Mondays. Although, with the non-farms on Friday and everything, this might be a situation where that doesn't apply. That's kind of what I'm thinking at the moment. Wholesale inventories. Oh yeah, totally forgot about that. Well, wholesale inventories month over month revised. Spot 2% versus an expected spot 3. And wholesale sales month over month spot 1 versus a spot 3%. Not seeing any real reaction in the market to it, but there's a number. We have a 3-month bill auction later today, but nothing too big. Yeah. I'm just realizing that I don't think that financial juice is even going. I should make sure that that's on. Act 27. That's a lot of selling being eaten by bids for a session high. Yeah. Well, in fact, it's been almost let's just say 11,000 contracts selling so far. 11,000 net contracts selling so far. Crossed 4 ticks, but it's the thing that I've been saying, right? Like, it's a little slippery. You'd think, with them putting 4 to 5,000 contracts at each price, that 10,000 contracts should only be like 1 or 2 ticks, right? But a 10,000 net change in cumulative delta right now is like the whole range. This is a little dangerous. I just got an email from Jigsaw. The beta drops in 4 days. Oh, they changed it. Boo. I gotta say, I'm really not a fan. Like, I'm happy that you guys took some trades and that you made some money off of it, but what I'm seeing today is not my market. What I'm seeing is the kind of slippery markets that I honestly kind of piss me off when I take trades. You know, it was like, I'll get in. Oh, it's gonna breach higher. Look, this is what would have happened to me if I was actively trading this, right? So I would come in here and I'd be like, okay, maybe I'm gonna do something. No? Okay, well now this time it's definitely gonna break out. Okay, so I go long here, I make 1, 2, maybe 3 ticks, and then it comes back and I scratch it. Like, that's what would happen to me, right? It's just, and I think that what's going on, and I'm pointing this out or focusing on this so much because I think that a large part of what I can do is to provide my own experience and my own intuition on these things, right? And so the intuition that I'm getting is that the market has changed. We are outside of the summer market conditions now, right? We're after Labor Day and we're after the first non-farms payroll, so we should get more standard liquidity. And I do see like more liquidity out there, but I am not seeing the, you know, when it takes a price, how many contracts does it take to actually push it up? I'm not seeing that. It's kind of down towards the levels that we had before where it can happen on less than 2,000 contracts. And so you get this market that's very, very slippery. And what happens when you're in that is that like all of your calibrations get messed up, right? You're calibrated based off of like the standard action and like, oh, okay, 10,000 contracts should, you know, be a move of this, and but it's not. It's kind of all messed up. And so your calibrations all get messed up. And what I'm seeing in myself, at least today, is that I've got a good enough handle on it that I'm not fooled by that. That I can see, well, it's a Monday and everything else. One small meta order pushes us up very easily. But I'm not actually seeing super clear indications of large block trades being taken in the treasury. It looks like it's mostly just following the Japanese yen. And since the Japanese yen came back a little clip, so does the treasury. So I can kind of provide that intuition and experience. That's probably the most beneficial thing for you guys. Obviously not for Octavius, because I think he's been doing this just as long, if not longer than me. But for the new people, this is the kind of the thing that I'm eyeing here. It's that his action's a little deceptive today. Yeah. Or rather, the action's a little deceptive today. Yeah. Let's see here. I was coming over here to see if I got the Jigsaw email yet, but it looks like it hasn't reached me. All the way back now to 26. Buyer's cost basis. Okay, so we did come back pretty strongly. I'm still kind of seeing some signs of them chomping at the bit, but that kind of looks to me like the day traders trying to, getting a little too excited about it. So, I wouldn't read too much into those kind of like reaching higher sort of things. That might, especially if the Japanese yen turns around, which it really has not yet. So probably the yen is going to be the driver, and if the yen decides to go another step higher, then we'll go up, and otherwise we'll go down. Well, if we come over here and look at the yen, we are at an area of previous resistance. So this could be. I think the trade is a little bit more risky here. Oh yeah, I forgot about this. So have you guys noticed? Well, probably not, because you guys don't visit Reddit. But on the day trading subreddits, there have been so many people recently saying that they're giving up on trading. It's really quite wild. We've never seen this before. Like, there's always people coming into trading and leaving trading. But usually what happens is the people, when they leave, they don't say anything. They just, they just quit. And nobody sees them again. But now for some reason, and maybe this is like a Gen Z thing, I don't know. But now all of a sudden, they feel the need to tell everybody that they're giving up on it. It's really interesting to watch, like, everybody's reactions to it, because I think some people are like in super denial. They're like, well, your problem is that you don't have good enough risk management. Well, maybe some of these people are sizing up too big, but if they had good risk management, they'd still be losing. In fact, if they had good risk management, they probably would never have made as much money as they had to begin with. So some of these people are like, I'm down 40K. I'm like, how do you do that? Maybe they hit big at the very beginning and the 40K was like their drawdown or something. Because if you just like made 40K on your own and you blew it, like, what the heck are you doing? Probably the same reason that people post on Facebook, I'm leaving because y'all suck, yada yada. Mentions. I don't see too much of that. There's this thing, I tell you what, man. There are all sorts of things that the algorithm tries to yank me into, and I'm like, nope, I know exactly what you're doing, and I immediately scroll along as soon as I see something like that. And one of them is on Utah hating. So like, there's this group of people, they live in Utah, but they despise living here. Just leave, man. Just go. I understand it's hard to go, but like, just go. There's nothing like, a real loser hates where they live. I hate to break it to you, but if you really hate where you live, that kind of makes you a loser. Like, just leave. You'll be happier. If you go find somewhere else and see how much better or worse it is. Some people they do find something that like really appeals to them. I'd say most people are a little bit disappointed by what they find on the outside. They find that, oh, the Mormons weren't the only problem that they had in their life. being rejected by the Mormons isn't the only thing. But man, so whenever I see that stuff, I'm because it tries to draw you in with that, like, that rage bait, whatever. Nope, I just as soon as I get any hint that like, they don't like living in Utah, scroll on. I know all of the problems and the things that people complain about and everything. I don't need to hear about it. It's just negativity that's gonna pull you down. Doesn't help you. It's the same thing. My wife, I get after her all the time. Like, she was watching this live stream the other day, and they were talking about like there was like a murder suicide, like the mother killed the 2 kids and then killed herself. She was watching that. I'm like, well, why? So at first it seemed like it was a murder and that it wasn't the mom, but then as things went along, we found out what was actually going on. She's like watching it, and I'm like, why are you watching this? And she's like, well, like, it's an important thing that's happening. And I'm like, is it really? Like, does this really actually have a measurable impact on your life? Because if it's not helping you, it's probably better to pare it down. And this comes back to the intuition thing that we've been talking about. Like, so you want to consume a lot of information, you want to know what's going on and everything, right? But there is a problem with consuming too much information, because the brain has a very difficult time differentiating between what is real good solid information and what is noise. And so if you're constantly training your brain with noise, then you're never going to develop that intuition. You'll think that you have the intuition, but your intuition will just always be bad. So, it's very important for us to think about the media that we're consuming and asking ourselves, does this actually help me? Or is this just noise? The angry atheists? Not necessarily. I don't know. I wish I had some statistics on this, like what percentage of people that leave the LDS church become atheists versus something else. But honestly, Uzi, the majority of the people that leave and don't like it here, it's because there was something that they wanted to do that the culture generally looks down upon, right? Like like if you want to drink every day, probably not a lot of people in the area that are going to join you and, want to. Somebody that drinks too much, I'm kind of like, well, I don't want to be around that. I don't like drunk people, So I would say that probably I want to guess that 60% of them are like either they wanted to drink alcohol or they wanted to have premarital sex, and that's kind of why they leave the church / the area. And then I think that there's another percentage of people that just don't enjoy the area. Like, it's too hot. If you're not into the church, it's hard to find a real social group. Those sorts of things. So I don't know if it's necessarily because they're atheists and they want to catch it. I know. It's kind of a weird thing you think about it from my perspective, because it's like I have zero desire whatsoever to drink alcohol, for instance. Like, I know with my neurochemistry and all of those sorts of things that any kind of an addictive substance could be a really hard thing for me. So there's no way I would ever, like, even if the church came out and was like, beer is actually okay to drink and we encourage you to, I wouldn't do it. Well, there's a possibility that could happen, because there was a time when the LDS church was not anti-alcohol everything. That was actually something that really kind of came out of the temperance movement and then just kind of stayed around. But before that, Mormons all drank. It was just like you weren't supposed to have strong drink and you weren't supposed to get drunk, but they would still drink beer, right? But I wouldn't. So, like, those things that tempt other people, they don't tempt me, because I know that too much of a problem for me. I have no interest going down that. But it's a thing on social media. Goes, oh, you're from Utah, so you might want to watch anti-Mormon content or anti-Utah content. No, go away. I know what those people have to say. I don't need to toxify my life with listening to it all the time. It's kind of hard because there's a lot of stuff going on these days. Like, especially all of the news that you hear about, like, illegal immigration, for instance. Like, the big headline I heard today was that there were some cities that were having problems with migrants, like, catching pets and, like, wild ducks and eating them. It's kind of like, ugh. But, like, I don't know if that, spending a whole lot of time thinking about that stuff really helps you. Like, it is a thing if it's happening. Maybe it's exaggerated, maybe it's not, but I don't want to spend too much time on those things, man. I have nothing principally stopping me from drinking. I just don't like it, so I don't do it. All 2023, I've had a single beer. Well, I saw this thing on TikTok yesterday about this, actually. They were saying that, like, okay, millennials and Gen Z do not drink as much alcohol as previous generations did. By far. They don't like to drink. Oh man, as I've been yapping, I haven't even been paying attention, and they pushed another leg up here. And the yen was with it, and not really a big change in cumulative delta. Probably because so many of them are on SSRIs and stuff. Maybe. But this person was saying, oh, I bet you that those people are all missing out on lots of social and work opportunities because they don't drink. And so they were arguing about that. I just thought that was interesting. I kind of would think no, but I don't drink, so what would I know? That's interesting you say so many of them are on SSRIs. I kind of wonder, like, so there's a lot of people with depression these days and on SSRIs. Is that because those conditions have always been there and just not treated? Or is there something going on with our society creating these problems? Because I kind of think that it's the latter. I think that there are some things about our society going on that are causing these problems. I think that when you factor in the super carb rich diet that we're on, most people not really getting a whole lot of exercise, and then on top of that, more recently, people's social groups just completely falling apart, that people are really likely to develop depression under those circumstances. Like, I am really particular about what I try to eat healthy. I'm extremely active, and I have family close. So I don't know. Some of my other social groups have kind of gone away as I've gotten older, but family is still there. And so that's been good. And they're strict. So I don't have those problems. If I didn't have any of those things, yeah, maybe I would be depressed too. Across the street, my neighbor is the same. We grew up in this neighborhood and ultimately bought houses here. He has two sons. One is like 20 and the other is 15 to 16. And both of them know almost no one who isn't on medications. Yeah. Well, so more recently, some of my kids, we've gotten them diagnosed with ADHD and are getting them on medications. So the one, my stepdaughter, she's so obviously ADHD. Was like, I did not see this when you were younger, but now that you've gotten to like the 12-year-old, like junior high age, I can see the immaturity and I can tell that you've got some ADHD problems. You can't focus. You don't realize all of the things that you're missing because you're not paying attention. She's constantly saying things that I'm like, the things that I know is like, that's what I did when I was a kid. I didn't realize. And then I got older and I started paying attention and saw everything that it was missing. And it just pains me every day. And I'm like, you're gonna be the same way. You're gonna get older and you're just gonna cringe about all of the stuff that you should have seen and didn't. You know? But the older one, he's definitely helping him. Like, he was having trouble with school and getting started and all of those, but I never really saw it coming, you know? And I do wonder if the line between, like, ADHD and not ADHD, and I'm talking about, like, if there's a line where we can conclusively say, like, with a really strict test, like we have a genetic test or something. Just my understanding is we could, but the technology is just not good enough for a genetic test to be cheap enough. But if we did diagnose ADHD with a genetic test, right? There's still some fuzziness to it because there is some environmental factors too. And so I'm kind of wondering if, like, well, maybe more people are having ADHD symptoms to the point that they need medication. Not because anything changed in the water or that our genes changed or anything, but that our behavior changed. That we spend so much time on social media and consuming TikTok and everything, and that kind of makes people more ADHD. I really think that could be a factor, especially for kids. Because the whole thing is that it's a neural developmental disorder. It's like the brain doesn't grow in the way that it's supposed to. So if you're doing something like you become a porn addict at 14, I honestly believe that becoming a porn addict at 14 could cause you to develop ADHD. If it's something that you really is out of control. Because you're getting so much dopamine into your brain, and then like the rest of your brain kind of like atrophies, and when you don't have that high, you know you need the dopamine detox. Essentially, basically, you need a higher level of dopamine in your brain to feel good and to feel motivated and to do things. And since you're artificially inflating it all the time with this content, right? On the other hand, I don't know if the dopamine detox idea thing actually does anything. I don't have a thing against modern medicine per se. I'm just nervous that everything's going to kill me. Well, you know what, Uzi? I do feel... So I think that we have developed a society where we rely too much on experts sometimes. Like, okay, like it's important to have experts because not everybody can know all of the things necessary to be like the stuff that doctors go through to be able to be a doctor is like insane. Like the amount of information that they have to memorize. No, so like we need doctors. We should trust them in their areas of authority, right? But what the doctor doesn't know is necessarily what's best for you. The doctor doesn't necessarily know your particular circumstances, and the ideal thing would be that you're able to provide them with all of that information, and then they can help you make a good informed decision, right? But I find very often that that's not what happens. That they just, like this is the thing that's been going on with these kids that got gender transitions and then later decided to detransition, right? The story is always, well, I was having problems, and so I started seeing a psychologist or whatever the deal was, and then they convinced the kid that they were trans, and then like immediately put on the roadway to hormones and all of these sorts of things. And the parents didn't question it, they said, well, they said that I need to do this or my kid will kill themselves, and so they just do it and they don't question it, right? And this is very much the case, I think, if a doctor wants to put you on a antidepressant class medication. Okay, you like, or really anything that's psychoactive. This is one of the things that kind of like irks me, honestly, about the discussions that you see online around. Oh, hold on a second. I got the issue with the phone. I have to turn off the Bluetooth. Switch this back over to here. There we go. Anyways, is that like amongst psychoactive medications, Adderall is like one of the mildest, least harmful. Like, you can abuse it, but you have to do crazy. Like, you have to like crush it up and sniff it to abuse it. But some of these things, like the antidepressant style medications, can have some pretty serious side effects, and the doctor's just like, okay, well, I would recommend that you go on this, and so you just go on this, and you haven't read anything about it, you don't know what the side effects of it are or anything, and later on you realize, oh, actually this gives you suicidal idealizations, for instance. Like, you've got to understand, if you're on one of those medications, you've got to understand how they work and what they do, so that you can adjust your own, like if you are ADHD and you get put on Adderall, you should investigate all the stuff about the medication, because things like when you take it, what you eat when you take it, what you're doing when the medication is wearing off, these are all things that make a significant difference to how successful you'll be on that medication. So, I'm not saying don't trust experts, but I'm saying there are things you have to do your own primary research on. And being on psychotropic medications is one of them. So, Seth, which contract of yields is more correlated to current contracts of bonds? For example, if you trade ZB, which one of 10-year or, yeah. Oh, which one of 10-year U or 10-year V do you check? Oh, that's an interesting question. Well, so, I would say that in the micro treasury yield futures, that the current month is pretty much the only one that you're going to see any activity on. And so there's really not much of a point in looking at the other contracts. So I would just look at the current month. We're in September now, so you would want to look at September in the 10-year. But we're in December now for the treasuries, right? So I would just look at the front month contracts. Trying to look at like certain back months to see if that yield is more accurate or not isn't really going to help you. Another thing here though is like, why are you trying to compare? What are you actually trying to find out, right? Like if you're coming up here and you're saying, okay, here's where my 10-year treasury is at, what yield does that correspond to, right? Well, first of all, might not necessarily matter. But second of all, there are some tools on the CME that will kind of show you based on which contract, which is the cheapest to deliver, and all of these things. Because you got to remember that these are derivatives and kind of abstractions of what the bonds really are, right? If you're trading a future, you could get the bond delivered, but like you could be delivered any bond from a list of bonds. And then one of them is going to be the cheapest for that person to deliver and is the most likely one that you're going to get. And that's the one that kind of dominates the price action. Now, on the other hand, you're looking at the yield because you hear that the yield curve is inverted, or there's this certain percentage in the yield curve wherein it starts to become a problem for certain companies. Like 4% on the way up, 4% was listed as a place where like there would be a lot of problems and chaos once we got past 4%, right? So if that's the sort of a thing that you're looking at, I would look at the micro 10-year. Because what the micro 10-year yield is essentially they're looking at the cash bonds trading on broker tech and the corresponding yield that corresponds to those. Okay. So the micro 10-year is going to be like the yield that's going to be the most accurate and applicable to like looking at the macro economy as a whole. Whereas the treasury, the ZN is where you're going to see the most action and the most information about like what's kind of going on. Like, are people panicking today or not, or that sort of thing. So there's a couple of thoughts. Maybe that will give you an idea. You can ask further questions, because it really depends on what specifically you're trying to accomplish with it. There was some brand of acne medication causing that a lot of kids were prescribed on. That was you're thinking about Accutane, probably. Yeah, there was. Accutane had some problems. Man, I knew this person that was a girl, and she had a disorder where her brain produces too much brain fluid, and so it causes chronic headaches, like really debilitating headaches. And so they had a medication that would reduce the amount of fluid that you'd produce so that you did not have migraines all the time. But that medication made you paranoid. And oh my gosh, did it make them paranoid. This community, and that person was paranoid, but then there was the leaders of that community were also paranoid, not necessarily because they were on medications, but just like paranoid. And it was such a problem. It was like if somebody was talking to their friends like, I'm not so happy, I don't think that I'm gonna be hanging out here as much anymore, like the owner would catch wind and preemptively ban them because they're so paranoid about people. Like, yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy. I tell you what, like people that have like an actual paranoid disorder, it's really destructive to their relationships. So yeah, like if you're going to be on that, then you have to be able to deal with being paranoid. And that's something that like, I'm not sure you can really deal with on your own. Like you're going to need help from family and friends to help you deal with that stuff. And that's going to be rough on them, but like, that's why you got to know what these things do. Are they maybe overprescribed? I don't know. I don't know how you would determine that. So I can't say that they're overprescribed, but I can say that some people don't fully understand what they're on. But again, ADHD is like the most innocuous one that you could get prescribed with. So if you get prescribed or if you get diagnosed with ADHD, just take the Adderall, man. Like there's negative side effects to it. It makes you kind of in the let's get things done mode, and it makes you a little less empathetic, I guess you could say. Like there's a reason why in World War II, Germany would give their soldiers essentially amphetamines, because it would cause the soldiers to have high energy and go and get the job done. And they were less likely to have hang-ups about what they needed to do to get the job done, if you catch my drift, right? Yeah, that's what ADHD. I'm not saying like do anything awful or what is the word, immoral, but I'm not a nice person when I'm on medications, right? But it's worth it. Because if you have ADHD, that's going to hold you back in life. And the medication will get you back to park. It's like wearing glasses. And so that's what irks me, is there's all these people on the internet that are like, but you really need the medications because it's kind of, it's kind of like meth. But it's like, no, because one, it's really mild. Like the impacts that it has on you is actually pretty innocuous. And two, it solves the issue, and it is a real issue that's going to hold you back in life. Like you're talking about, making 50% or more income yearly. It's a big difference. Well, after reaching that high, we haven't been able to breach it again. I'm kind of wondering if 115 might be kind of a really difficult hurdle to get over. Also helps with overeating, I hear. Yeah, well, so most people that get on ADHD medications do lose weight. And part of it is that, again, the whole thing is impulse control, like, you'll have, you come into a situation where you've been in that situation before, and what you did last time didn't go very well. You're in this situation and you made the funny quip or whatever, and it pissed everybody off, and they're mad at you, right? So when you're in that situation again, most people have this little voice in their head, or they'll see that past situation and they'll go, oh yeah, last time this happened, didn't go so well, so I'm not going to do that this time. And then they don't do that thing, right? ADHD person doesn't have that. Like, they might have the mind's eye or the mind's voice, but it will come late. They'll do the thing, they'll say the thing, and then afterwards they'll say, oh, you remember last time when I did that, and I probably shouldn't have done that, but now you've already done it, and now you're just dealing with the guilt of doing something that you knew that you shouldn't have done, right? That's ADHD. So, when it comes to food, ADHD person, they'll be bored, they'll go and they'll eat something, and then afterwards they'll be like, oh, like there was a lot of calories in that, I shouldn't have eaten that, right? So it's hard to lose weight. But then on top of that, it also does increase your metabolism overall. Like, I find it very, very difficult. I can eat. I don't have a problem with, when it's time, I eat, and I can eat as much as I need to, right? So I don't have a problem getting enough calories especially when I'm really care about that, like I'm trying to bulk or something like that. But I have to eat a lot to even just maintain my weight, because the medication increases your metabolism overall. So that just makes me think about all of these things with the GLP medications, because one of the things that I see from a lot of people is like influencers and stuff. So they're saying, oh, well, the GLP medications prove that weight loss is really just about limiting how much you eat. Not true. I'll tell you why. Because there are some GLPs that essentially, bind to a peptide in your stomach to quell your appetite so that you're not as hungry. In fact, with my wife, because she's on that stuff, she if she eats too much, she feels like she's gonna throw up. But there are other forms. Sometimes it's other forms, but I think that sometimes it's just you're combining multiple peptides together that control your insulin response. And people lose weight faster when they have the one that also controls their insulin response. So losing weight is partly calories in, calories out, but is also partly how your body responds to insulin. Which does mean that exercising and what you eat, not just how much you eat, but what you eat, will play a significant factor in how quickly you lose weight. Does it give you energy when you work out? Okay, I'm gonna say yes and no. So, like, if you're having issues working out, like if you're the kind of person that's like, I have to have my pre-workout booster in order to get through my workout, right? The Adderall can fit that same space, let's say. Like, you'll be more motivated to get through your workout and push all the way. You know, push yourself hard, let's say. But it also increases anxiety. This is the kind of the weird side effect that some people, I don't really have a problem with this. I think maybe as a kid, maybe I did, but because I remember, especially as a kid, feeling like this impending sense of doom, like that always felt like something bad is about to happen. Right? That's the medication doing that to you. And that's kind of catabolic in nature. So while it can increase your focus and everything, it can also kind of hurt your gains. So I prefer to not exercise on the medication. But I also found that it affected my blood pressure too much, that like I was much more likely to like feel like I was going to pass out after doing a heavy clean when I took the medication. Like especially the one that I'm on, that's the Strattera. Yeah, I never had problems before, but then once I got on the Strattera, I have to be careful when I do things because I can pass out. And like I've kind of gone through a period where I haven't worked out very much because of the elbow. By the way, can we see? It's still very red, but you can't see the scar very well on the camera. Maybe if I make it big. Oh, yeah, you can see it. Maybe if the elbow wasn't inflamed overall and it was just the scar there, then maybe you'd be able to see it more clearly. But so like this week I can like get back to doing it. I have to be a little bit light with the elbow at first, so I'm not going to be doing anything heavy, but I have to gradually bring myself back into it, because if I just if I go into squats as heavy as I can, I'd be so miserable the next day. It doesn't help. So I just kind of do like bare minimum warm up first time, slowly work myself up over the course of a week, and then I can be back to where I was. Pretty huge side benefit improving BMI. Oh, you're probably talking about the GLPs. But you know what? The GLPs is really going to change society, man. Because obesity is like the biggest health problem that we have. And right now, it's too expensive. But as those drugs come down in cost, I think it's going to have a pretty major effect on the world. Of course, we're probably going to find some side effects of it at some point too that maybe makes that unsavory. But anyways, guys, it's time for me to go. So, Tricky Monday. Let's call it a Tricky Monday uptrend. Because if you're looking for, like Monday trend that is up, but it's kind of, it's some pullbacks and everything that are a little bit tricky, I think that today was the day. I don't think that this, there was money in it, of course, but just because it moved doesn't necessarily mean that you have to trade it, and I'm okay not trading it. I don't think that this is action that's super favorable to me. a lot of the places that I would have been interested in getting in would have had a lot of heat. So, but guys, we got big stuff coming later this week with the inflation data and so forth. So, see you guys tomorrow. In the meantime, stay excellent.